All right, everybody, it's the Jere Metcalf Podcast where top agents tell how they do it. And we have Koki Adasi back for a second time from DC with Compass. Koki, welcome back.
Good morning. How are you doing today, Jerry?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me again.
Thanks for coming. So everybody, Koki has some really great insights. The last time we shared with him, he shared with us about his success. So make sure you listen to that interview. Do we have, what number is that, Isaac?
That is 78.
Interview 78. And so go back and listen to that. But we wanted to bring him back because he's really got some great tips on team building, and which everybody that listens to the show and doesn't listen to the show, that's everybody's question. And the other one before that, which team building comes into play on that, is keeping our sanity in this. People don't know until they get into it how demanding this is and how intense it is, which has a lot to do with why so many people, well, there's a low barrier to entry, but about 5% retention after 2 years. And I think that has a lot to do with why. So that being said, that's what we're going to talk about. But Koki, go ahead. For those of you who have not listened to episode 78, tell us just a little bit about yourself and your success. And don't be afraid to boast a little, or I'm going to have to do it for you.
All right. So I've been in real estate for 12 years, and I actually was with Long & Foster here in DC for most of that time. And the last 6 months or so, switched over to Compass, and really loving it here. It's a great company. I'm sure folks who are listening have heard a lot about it in the media. And I run a sales team, Team Koki. We have 6 people on our team. And I'll talk in depth, about how we kind of created the team over the last 5-6 years. And as far as success, success to me is simply the natural consequence of consistently applying the basic fundamentals. And so in real estate, those fundamentals are,
Wait. I'm going to stop you because that was really good. Say that one more time. The definition, that was really good. I want everybody to hear that. And Isaac is writing it down right now because we're going to hashtag it, quote it, whatever. The definition of success, tell us one more time.
Yeah. Success is the natural consequence of consistently applying the basic fundamentals. And I forget if that was a Jim Rohn or whose quote it was, but best quote ever that I've heard.
It really is.
In real estate, the fundamentals are, one, lead generation. You have to meet people. You got to make phone calls. You got to send emails. You got to be face to face. And so what can you do consistently to meet new people and then to build that relationship over time? And ultimately that will drive your business. That's how we built our business over the last 12 years.
So what is number 2? Number 1, lead generation.
Yep.
I've got a lot to say about that, but I'm going to let you do all the talking.
Service. Service. Everything we do, whether it's in real estate or if it's in our community service efforts, we're taking care of people, right? And so if you think about the last time we went to Nordstrom's or to Ritz or anywhere, Southwest Airlines, and you had great service, it makes you feel amazing, and you want to go back and you want to do it again. And so you continue that business more and more and more. And so in real estate, you got to think to yourself, how can I take care of these people? I got to make them feel so amazing that they want to send all their friends and all their family to me. That's how we try to build our business.
So I am going to interject because I can't help myself, and I think it'll add to this interview. And Isaac will try to tell me if I'm talking too much. Real quick on the lead generation, I just want to say to everybody, and I know Koki would agree, there are different ways to lead generate. There's this common denominator or belief that I think is unfortunate in our business, that people think that means calling people 33 times a year or calling people until they tell you not to call them. And there's a little more to it. There's prospecting and positioning. When you can position yourself so that lead generation isn't stalking people until they can't say no. And you can do it in a way that delivers value. I'm just going to leave it at that. But lead generation, if you're good at cold calls, go for it. Jere Metcalf is not, so I had to come up with more clever ways to do it. But on your service, I love what you said about Nordstrom and Ritz. And I want to elaborate on that too, and then you bounce back with ideas from your team. But I say it because it comes up, people drive through historic Brookhaven in Atlanta, which is one of the most prestigious neighborhoods in Atlanta, and I am blessed that my name, I'm blessed, and it's also a lot of hard work, that my name's literally on almost every sign in the neighborhood. And it's not because I know people now, but a lot of people know people. It's because of service. you know, and the best example is the Ritz-Carlton. He speaks to Ritz-Carlton, but he said, oh, and it was, who was on our show? I'm looking this way, everybody, because Isaac's over here. But
Thank you
Doug,
for explaining. I was getting a little concerned.
Right, a little concerned, like what's going on with that girl? Yeah. So Doug Leibinger with Compass and Aspen talks about, you know, the differences when you're at the Ritz-Carlton and somebody says, where's the restroom? You can either point to it or you show them and walk them to it.
Yep.
Now, if somebody says, do you care which one I do? They're going to say no. But the experience that they receive when you do or don't do it is exponentially different. It's the smallest gestures that also in our business we don't realize can make the biggest difference on a deal. I'll give you one example and then I'll stop. I had a buyer in Brookhaven who had put the house under contract. His wife was dying for the house and she thought the deal wasn't going to work out. The husband surprised her and asked us if we would make sure that the lights were on in the house because he was going to drive his wife by to surprise her. Well, I was at dinner, and luckily I live close by, which is why I specialize in the neighborhood. But I got noticed that the lights didn't get on. So I get up and run over and get those lights on in that house so that when he drove his wife by, the experience, did it matter if the lights are on? Does it matter? Well, you could say no. But the experience and the way it touches people when we make those gestures is exponential in how they feel about the house. I'm going to stop there, y'all, because I could keep going. But yeah.
It's the small things, and you know, it's funny you gave the example of you know, showing someone versus pointing, and I heard that at a conference many years ago and never thought much of it, and I was actually at I don't know if it was Nordstrom's or some store, and I asked, you know, where is the restroom or where's whatever. And it was so easy to point and say, oh, it's right there. But they walked me the entire way to where I was going. I'm like, wow, like that was a very nice touch, you know? It took them 10 seconds. And, you know, but those are things that people think of and they feel and they experience, and that they're like, wow, like that was amazing. And I want to continue to give you business.
Well, and we're in a business of connecting with people, and those small gestures, while they're gestures of service and serving others, we talked a lot in our interview, and we did a one-liner on you today, actually. Did it go out this morning? About service, it's about serving others. And, you know, it's the same thing, serving others in our industry. But lead generation, service, and then what is the next one? And how many fundamentals are there? Was it 6?
I mean, no. That's really it. I mean,
there are as many as we want to make, right?
Like you could have 20, right? But like whatever it is, it has to be done consistently, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like for us, you know, clients know that. Like here's a good example for buyers. Okay, there's 1.3 million realtors across the country, and probably several more licensees. A buyer says, hey, I'm trying to buy a house. I want to be in Chevy Chase. I want a single family. I want 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath, whatever. Here's a price range. It's so easy to create a search and start just auto sending them properties every day. Mm-hmm. But if you want to provide like true service, when you ask them all the questions and what they want, you sift through that list yourself and send them only the properties that actually meet their criteria, right? Because the goal is to save them time and help the process be more efficient for them, right? It takes us more time, but we're providing a higher level of service, right? So you want to be able to differentiate yourself, from competition. That's one very small thing that you can do to show them that you're a true professional and you care about your business.
Well, I don't know about you, and this is almost a really good secret, but with my clients who are buyers, I remind them it's not about what's in MLS. We're going to go through what's in MLS, and we're going to sort out what's in MLS that you do and don't like, but we're also going to figure out what you want, and we're going to find it, whether it's actively listed or not. Mm-hmm. I found properties that we ended up getting built for them because it ended up going down the path of not being afraid. I am not a door knocker, but if I know there's a house my client wants, I will knock on the door because it's specific. I don't go drive through neighborhood. But again, everybody, if that's your thing and you get success from it, go for it. But I think it's everybody tapping into what they're best at and where they find. If I went knocking on doors, I think I'd end up getting shot or something. Because I just not my thing. But anyway, but it's back to the service about how do we get our client what they need. Start from the client's experience. But go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to add, one thing with the like, consistency, with the fundamentals is also follow up. So like you can lead generate, you can prospect, you can make calls, you can do whatever it is that you want to do, but you have to have a follow up plan in place. So this Saturday we had our annual fall festival, which was an amazing event, and you'll probably see photos in a post today.
Which we talked about on our first interview with you.
We did. So we had we had about 400 people attend the event, which is an awesome turnout. And like here, like to me, like the awesome sauce of that is that we're gonna follow up with all those people, and there's gonna be a personal follow up. So for instance, we have a now who's in the process now of buying a property. She's working with Hannibal on our team, and I saw her walk by, and I was like, "Hey, Renee, how you doing? How's the search going or whatever?" And she stopped and turned to me, and she was like, "How do you how do you remember my name?" And I was like, "Well, we met a couple times or whatever, and like we as a team try and go through the list like prior to the event and like memorize everyone's name, and it's like very hard to do. Like there's probably like."
Now, do you get pictures next to the names, or how do you?
So most of them like I've met at some point, and so I like never forget a face. There was probably like 5 people who I like could not recall their name, and it was like very frustrating. But most people like I like knew their names, and they know that I've only seen like once or twice in the past, and we had clients who bought like 9 years ago, 10 years ago, who were there at the event, and I see them and it's like, "Hey Rita, how you doing?" And they're like, "Man, like how does he remember like?"
That's awesome. So you never forget a face, but for those of us who do you have any advice on how to do that, or what do you do with the rest of your team?
Create a list of all the names, and then like pull their Facebook photo or LinkedIn photo or whatever, and just like go through it several times before the event. I mean, even me, when I see somebody for a second time and they say, "Hey Koki, how you doing?" Like it's a great feeling to like hear your name and know that like they recall who you are. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Not the hey, how's it going? Like, hey, how's it going? They don't know your name. They can't remember your name. Otherwise, they would have said, "Hey, Jerry, how you doing? Good to see you again."
Big difference. Big difference. Yeah. So let's talk about, because we've got 2. Do we want to talk about, because obviously you're really organized and really great with people and really great with connecting. That's clearly, and understanding how to serve people. And you're so good at it that I'm sure 2 things have happened. It incurs a lot of business coming your way, which creates stress and tension, which our business is full of anyway, because we're dealing with people's money, home, and family. And those are the 3 most intimate and therefore stressful things that we can be engaged with other people. And then you've built a team, which also can be stressful, even though the intention is to reduce the stress from that. So where do we go? Do we want to talk a little bit about kind of when you got busy and how you handled it and things that you did to diffuse stress, because you built a team to diffuse stress, but I'm sure that increased more, and then go from there?
Sure. Yes. So, probably 4 years into the business, I started getting to a point where I was doing a lot of administrative tasks that were taking a lot of time, and I realized that I started to need some support. Mm-hmm. My first hire was an admin assistant. And, over the last 8 years, I probably had, 8 assistants, 2 of them who were phenomenal for like 5-6 years.
Right.
And both ended up moving down to Florida. One of them is in Tampa. The other one's in Key West.
One of those good ones needs to come to Atlanta.
Yeah, right. And that's part of the challenge of like having a team is, things happen. People get married and they relocate.
Right.
I had a great assistant who moved and went to Germany. So you're consistently needing to bring in new talent. And then we got to a point where I had too many buyers and couldn't service all the buyers well, so I had to bring on a buyer's agent. And my best buyer's agent, I think I mentioned on the last show, CJ, who was on the team for almost 7 years.
Yeah.
She went to a different company about 6 months ago. So that's a big transition there. Bringing on new agents. Right now we have, including myself, we have 4 agents, and 2 of them are newer to the business, and so require more training, more hand-holding, through transactions.
Yeah, definitely.
Fun, because everyone has to start somewhere, and then Melissa on my team, she's our lead buyer's agent. She's been in business for 3.5 years, and she's a rock star. I think she's going to do about close to $20 million this year in sales.
Wow, that's awesome.
Which is pretty amazing. And then we have my wife who runs operations, Jess. She runs all our team sales meetings, helps us with tracking all of our numbers. And then Lauren, who moved down to Tampa, still does PR and marketing for our team, and she's also our event planner. So our event this past Saturday, she coordinated all that, from bringing in the petting zoo to the food trucks to the face painters.
So Lauren,
bouncy house.
Yeah. So did you say Lauren is Lauren an agent and an event planner, or she's just like admin event planner?
So she's just PR, marketing, event planner.
Okay.
And in Florida, she also got her license recently, and she's now selling down there as well.
Wow. So run us through that again. There's 6 people total. Mm-hmm. That's everybody. So there's you plus 4 agents. 2 of those agents are new. So that leaves 1 person to do admin.
Yes. So the admin person actually is like not in a role. So we're actually hiring right now for a new admin person. We had someone in place, and they're actually out now on leaves. So we're bringing in a new person to fill that role.
So what is kind of the, because that's a lot of, what does the admin person do? What do they take on versus everybody else?
So they take on kind of all of my calendar, which as you know is a hectic calendar when you're in real estate, and all my travel. They also handle my email as well. Help me stay on top of my email.
Yeah.
Calls. Many times when I'm in a meeting, I'll forward my calls to my assistants. They can answer the calls and respond as needed and take messages so I can get back to them. And then we actually use Compass's contract to close team, so they take care of all of our deals once they're pending to closing. So that's a huge weight lifted off of our admin person's
Wow. Okay, great. So they schedule showings. Now, what about listings and putting listings in the system and getting the marketing done and all that good stuff? Who does that?
Yeah. So our admin person here in the office would handle all the listing prep. So getting places staged, having listing agreements signed, disclosures, landscaping that we do, cleaning services, putting it into the MLS. They handle all the pre-listing services, and then once we're pending, as we hand it over to the Compass team to handle the contract to close.
So on the you said landscaping and cleaning. Do y'all do that? Do y'all provide that service to your clients?
We do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we do landscaping, cleaning, staging for all our listings. Stuff that I pay for out of pocket, at time of listing. And then we'll also assist them with any kind of handyman work, getting stuff painted, switching out hardware.
And you guys pay for all of that?
So the painting and like any kind of work like that, the owner would pay for.
Okay.
But everything
but the staging, like let's say you've got a vacant house that needs furniture. Who handles that?
I do.
That's amazing. Do you have a warehouse of furniture, or do you just have a stager partnership? Or I'm actually working on that right now. That's why I'm and a lot of us probably are. So
yeah, we have a stager partnership, and her company can handle probably like 60 homes at a time.
Wow.
So they have a ton of inventory.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really, so that's kind of, it's almost like you're a built-in stager with your team. That's incredible. How many transactions does your team do a year?
Last year we did 116 last year. Right now we're at about 90 right now. So we'll finish up just over 100 this year.
And what's the price range y'all service from what to what?
We service from, on the low end around 200 to the high end, 2 million, 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. 200 in DC is it's a we need to talk to them. I'm kidding. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so let's talk about, that's how your team's structured. So, you talk about, before we were online, you talked about a couple of years ago, you flew someone in to meet your team and work with, you kind of take it from there, because I don't want to introduce it the wrong way, but I thought it was fascinating what y'all did.
Yeah, so a lot of times people think about what makes people successful, and I think that one thing is being able to like manage your emotions, right? So in real estate, we deal with negotiation with people all the time.
Wait, I'm gonna pause you again. Do not lose your thought, Isaac. And I'm looking at Isaac. Everybody, I've been watching my podcast and I'm self-conscious. Forgive me, but I'm gonna stop watching them. But But no, what makes people, the majority of what makes people successful was obviously the basics that we talked about, is consistent building upon your fundamentals, but also being able to manage your emotions. I just want to really drive that home because that can be missed, and that's so important. All right, go, but continue.
So when you think about it, like in transactions, most times when there's like a major problem or like major issue, it's because one of the agents involved in the transaction allowed themselves to get emotionally involved in the transaction, right? Because as realtors, as agents, we represent the buyer and the seller who are parties to the contract, right? And they're the ones who are like very emotional because they're spending a lot of money and it's a stressful process. Our job
And they
is
don't do it very often.
Yeah, and then like they do it once every 7-10 years. So our job is to help them relieve the stress, but in doing so, if we're nervous or if we're like overly excited or concerned in the process, that flows onto the client, right?
Exactly.
And so one thing that I think I've been able to do well is kind of like manage my emotions in the process and still be very empathetic at times, and at the same time help my clients stay on track in the process. So a couple of years ago, I decided to have a gentleman by the name of Greg Garber from Tennessee come into. He actually came to my home and did a 2-hour training for the team. And so Greg works with Division I colleges and NBA teams.
So Greg Garber, we want to make sure and tag him. So he works with the NBA teams. So we talked about Tim Grover, Relentless. Mark Noah introduced me to that book, best ever. Anyway, so Greg Garber.
Yep. So his whole shtick is he does mindfulness and meditation training, and for professional athletes and people who are playing it, in college at a very high level, they deal with a lot of stress. Like during the game, it's like you have all this stuff going on in your life, but like in a game, you need to focus on the game. And so, how do you handle that pressure? How do you learn how to breathe properly? Little basic things like that. And so he took us through this training, and it was awesome because we had a team member who I'd say is very anxious, has some anxiety, and he walked us through just different ways to breathe, and it was so amazing. So for example, if let's just say you get a phone call and it's one of those calls like, hey, it's a buyer's agent, you have a listing, and it's a listing that you've been trying to sell for a while, and you finally have a buyer for it, and your seller is moving to Tennessee or wherever, and they've now put a house under contract over there, so like a lot of stuff is going on. Buyer agent called you and says, hey, Jerry, I'm so sorry, but my client just can't move forward in this transaction, and like that's not at all what you want to hear in that moment. But like before even responding, you first need to breathe, and like it sounds okay. You need to breathe. Like yes, we always breathe, but no, like you need to like purposefully breathe. And so before,
when you get stressed, you immediately get shortness of breath. You actually stop breathing.
Exactly.
And then oxygen doesn't go to your head, and you can't think. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah.
So, I'm taking you tell us. I love it.
Before saying a word, you simply inhale, hold it for 2 seconds, and let it out, and now respond. And now, like in that 2 second time frame of just taking in a very deep breath, you've now allowed yourself to reduce your blood pressure, and now respond to them without being responding without being overly
defensive,
emotional,
desperate.
Right?
Yeah.
And
I love it.
So like on our team, I've seen how everyone who was like through that training. We also have like little bracelets he gave us too that say breathe on them, and it's just like a constant reminder that whenever we're gonna respond in a situation like to our kids who could be frustrating us, or to our spouse or whatever, just first pause and take a breath and like think about like how you want to respond and how you can respond like in a positive way, and then respond to them. And then he went through a bunch of different breathing exercises and like meditation, and we did this one like meditation. It was like a 2-minute meditation where you inhale for 5 seconds, right? It's like a slow inhale for 5 seconds, and then you let it out for 7. Just do it for 2 minutes. and you feel like you are just like flying, like you're like floating in the sky, and it's this awesome euphoric feeling that you can create by just
Just
pausing and breathing.
breathing. Just try some yoga. I mean,
Yeah,
same thing. Like that's what I
exactly.
do every day, except I didn't get it today. It's all
Yeah.
right. Anyway. No, but you're so right. I love it. I love it. So it's it's the simple things too. When you can get the oxygen to your head, so you can actually think, whereas you normally can't. You can remember Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference. I'm
Yep.
gonna meet Chris soon because this is ridiculous. But Chris's
Oh,
book. No, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, Greg's website is Greg Graber, Graber,
G
Greg
R
Graber
A B E R. Okay, got that, Isaac?
.com. Yeah, Greg Graber
GregGaber.com.
Graber.com.
We are going to share that, check that out, tag that, all of that good stuff. So Greg Gaber, and he does that with athletes. It's interesting too. I think some of the most talented people are obviously, it's not an opinion, it's fact, some of the most intense people. And when you get intense, like you stop breathing and you get in your own way. I think
Yep.
it's Gary Keller used to always say, get out of your own way. Everybody says it, but he's one that's really renowned or known for it. Like, just get out of your own way. And sometimes that's literally like, well, how do you do that? Breathe.
Yeah.
When people are talented, they're always also intense. And that being tense either can, if we learn to handle it through people like Greg Graber.com, we can harness that, and grow. It's like I was saying earlier, Gary Keller says, get out of your own way. And this is a little bit of how to get out of your own way. So on that, things get tense. You build a team. You deal with your emotions. You build a team. Now you kind of have your team's emotions to deal with. There's a few questions I have about that. You've given me a good example of how you help your team manage their own emotions. But I think another question is, in building your team, it's not just managing emotions. I think sometimes, and I'll quote Good to Great, how do you make sure you've got the right people on the right seat in the bus? I think sometimes we build a team and we have talented people on our team, but we've got to figure out where do they really go, and how do we make sure? Do you have any advice? Or we didn't talk about this before, so I'm totally throwing you for a loop here, or I might be, but what do you have to say about making sure you've got the right people on the right bus in the right seat on that bus?
Yep. Yes. So the first thing I'll say is that we don't always have the right person on the bus and in the right seat. Sometimes it's just not the right person. Sometimes they're not in the right seat, but there's a different seat on the bus that they can fill. And so a perfect example of that is a current buyer's agent that we have on the team started off as my assistant, and realized within the first 60 days or so that wasn't what he was best suited for, but he'd make a great agent and showing specialist. Mm-hmm. So we then on the bus to a different seat. We've had others who we thought were the right fit, but really just should not have been on the bus from the get-go. And for us to get on the bus, like, a couple of just basic tenets. Like, one is you have to be a naturally positive person. We deal in a very stressful, tough business, and if you can't handle pressure, and if you're negative and can't see the positive in all situations, then you should not be on the bus. And everyone that's currently on the team and currently on the bus, they're positive people, and life is not always easy, right?
Exactly.
But there's times when you want to vent and have a conversation and kind of decompress, and that's perfectly fine. But then after that, we now need to say, okay, well, after going through this experience, here's how we can bounce back and make the next deal or make the next call or whatever it is better.
Exactly.
So those are things that we look for when we're hiring people. Is what's kind of their temperament, and is it someone who, if they're out with the client, because they're going to represent the team and represent me, will they handle themselves professionally? Will they be positive? Are they trustworthy? Will they study their comps and be very knowledgeable in this business?
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that we look for.
Great. And so, for example, with your assistant, when you've got the wrong person in the wrong place on the bus, give us kind of like how that worked out? How did you handle that? Whose idea was it? Was it your idea, their idea? Was it mutual? Was there a story behind that to get them in the right place on the bus?
Yes. So you have to have check-ins. You got to have scheduled check-ins, and let them know how things are going, what's working well, what's not working well. You need to also get their feedback. How am I doing as a manager as well?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not perfect. Maybe there's something that I've been overlooking or haven't trained you on properly, so you're unable to do your job well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's definitely a two-way street. And one question that I always ask folks, during an interview is, are you comfortable coming into a new role on a new team and being able to speak up and speak your mind from like day one?
Great question.
Someone who's confident and someone who comes in and says, you know what, I can see why you guys have the system in place, but like I think this would be better. I love that, because again, we're not perfect, and I think we do things very well.
Exactly.
Better, and so you have to give people that that confidence and power that if I have a thought, it'll be heard, and I can share that with the team, and there won't be any issues with
Well, the most talented people are the people who are pushing you back, not in a negative way, but they're part of pushing the team forward. When you've got a team and you're kind of the one that's thinking of all the ideas and trying to drag them along to support you versus getting a team where you've got talented people, which means they will speak up and they will think of ideas, and they're the kind of people, and it goes back to the Ritz-Carlton analogy, metaphor, whatever, but it's people who step in and know how to make things better, people who don't not do something because it's not their job. People come in and step in because they know how things are run and are always doing better, thinking of better, and have the liberty and ability to be able to do that. So, you've got in structuring your team, you end up having kind of a streamlined workflow. For your events, you have a way things go. For listing appointments, you have a way. How do you manage that so that everybody on their team knows their part and their role to play, whether it's an event or a listing or a buyer? Do you use a system? Contactually has like a workflow pipeline system. I'm sure Compass is building one. Do you use anything like that, or how do you make sure everybody kind of knows how to, so things don't get left behind when you're selling 120 houses a year?
Yeah. So we use Salesforce. We also use Drive. So like Drive within the Google Suite, has kind of all of our documents and all of our checklists and systems. And then we also use Slack. Slack we've used now for, I don't know, like 6 months or so. And I've had friends who are like, you need to use Slack, and I was always opposed to getting like another app. But I love Slack. It's just a great to have
Wunderlist is another one. Yeah.
Wunderlist.
But Contactually, I think, uses some of Wunderlist software or something, because I have something very similar to Wunderlist built in. Okay. But you've got, anyway, but keep going. So Slack, where you can take, the only problem with Slack was we used to use that for the podcast, and then we'd have to go back 3 weeks and we couldn't find it. And now we're going to wrap this up with 3 good questions. And everybody knows me. It could turn into 5, but right now I think it's 3. Yeah. Number 1 is, what is your, and you can make these 2 separate answers, but in stress management and team building, what is your biggest aha? And is that one answer, or do you have one for each?
Stress management and team building was the biggest aha.
Biggest aha, biggest aha, biggest thing you've come to realize.
I would say, the biggest aha is just that, one, managing people, it's hard to manage people. I think that you kind of give them, advice and guidance, to work within, but you have to allow people to do what they want to do. And micromanaging does not work in 2018. Mm-hmm. you have to believe in the people that you have on your team. And if you don't, they shouldn't be on your team. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably the biggest aha. That the second piece with the mindfulness and all that, and meditation and just keeping your sanity is, I think it's, besides the breathing and all that, you need to have some kind of physical activity, whether you're someone who likes to walk or do yoga or play sports. And I think having consistent physical activity is just great for your body and for your mind and for your heart. So I would just highly recommend that, to everyone as well. And I think that's.
Yeah, and just breathe. I mean, talk about an aha, breathe. Yeah. Because I get real. Yeah, there he goes. Wait, that you got to do 5 and 7.
Yeah, it's
in for
great.
5, out for 7. Should I count?
Yeah.
It really is. If y'all ever, like, you get these clients on the phone, which most of mine, by the way, are seriously, like, people tell me, how do you have the nicest, best clients in the world? Well, that's for another podcast. But every once in a while, if they misbehave, I'm like, and I know I misbehave a lot if y'all are listening, but I'm like, I just stop, and it's like, I'll stop, but I just got to remember to breathe. Just stop, pause, listen, and breathe, and keep it in perspective. And remember, it's never about you. Like, I find that the agents are most successful are the agents that never forget it's not about them. It's never personal. Even if it is personal, it's not personal. It's not about them. We're here to serve and help other people. Do you have any big challenge in team building or stress management or both that you would share with us? Like, take us back to that moment where you're like, man, I don't know if this is ever going to happen right. And then you came out of it in such a better place because of the way you handled it and the lesson you got out of it.
So there's been a few times when, a team member has had a challenge in a transaction where, they made a mistake. And I think for any good team leader out there, any person I think managing a group, like, you need to take responsibility for whatever happens within your team. And so, perfect example, an agent who shall remain unnamed. We had a home inspection contingency on a transaction, and the time frame to respond ended up expiring. And the client wanted to go back and then ask for repairs. And so my team member, didn't realize that the time had passed, and I put together a notice to submit to the agent. And the thing is like, oh, well, this expired, 2 days ago, so the seller is not obligated to do any repairs. And so it was like a huge mistake. And I was like, cool. I was like, we're going to make sure that this gets addressed for the client. This is our mistake, our fault, and we're not going to say, oh, sorry, you guys missed a deadline. Our job is to make sure that they don't miss deadlines, right?
Exactly.
So just owning any mistakes that ever happen is so critical, and
so huge. Yeah.
It's not like pointing a finger, but like it is a good learning moment as well. Like, what can we do next time so that this doesn't happen again in a transaction? And the client was was very happy with us that we took care of it. It was a huge transaction. It was like $1.5 million transaction, and since then they've referred us to tons of their friends and family.
Exactly. Well, it's like you said earlier, seeing the positive in every problem. There really is an opportunity in every single one, and even when something as negligent as that happens, it's okay. A lot of people will think about, oh no, I'm not going to get paid, or how do I get out of this, or whatever. And it's not about you. It's about the client. And when you serve that way, the problem, even in making mistakes like that, is the opportunity to show and display to a client that you will do whatever it takes to make it right for them. Right. Because there is the misconception, or I don't know if maybe it isn't a misconception, but I believe it is from the agents I've worked with, that agents are just in it for the commission. And they're not. And I would say, everybody, be careful of people who believe that. And I have been in only one situation in so many of my transactions where I truly believe I was in a transaction where the client was taking advantage of the situation in that belief that they could get the commission out of all the brokers and still get the deal done. That's a side note. I think that's rare. All people are good people in the end. But back to your point is taking every opportunity we can to make it great for the client. Because as time goes by, and we're in this business, and 120 transactions a year, you find out doing the right thing, it's not like a myth. It really does pay off. It really, really does. Especially when you don't think of it for the intention of what am I going to get out of it, but you think of it for the intention of just purely, really serving people and doing the right thing.
Yep.
So that's a great story, by the way, because many of us would be embarrassed to admit, but all of us have made our mistakes like that and been in those situations and had team members in those situations. If there's one thing that you want us to remember, no, I'm not going to ask that question yet. I'm going to pause. If there's a book, Because you've given us books, but
Yep.
if there's a book around team building
Mm-hmm.
or stress, well, we know Greg Graber for stress management, but on team building, is there a book that you would recommend?
A book on team building. What have I read on team building? I have a list too of books, and I should have them right here.
Where you should have them on your beautiful bookshelf like behind you. We should do one of those. We're going to do a book. Everybody keeps asking me, like, we need to do all the books recommended on the Jere Metcalf podcast. We need to create one of those.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Rick Pitino has a Rick Pitino, probably is a bad person to use, but he has a pretty good book on team building. I can't remember the name of it. I read it several years ago. But yeah, outside of that, nothing else.
We can find it. Did you get that, Isaac? All right, everybody. We're gonna Isaac's finding it so we can post it, tag it, all of that good stuff. Or if you think of it, let us know.
Okay.
And then what is the one thing on stress management, dealing with our intense business, keeping and we didn't say a lot, but like even in keeping it off, we're a 24-hour business. We are always on. We just are.
Yeah.
That's just part of this business. Do you ever have a way of turning it off? Do you? I don't. I confess. Do you turn it off?
Yeah,
Everybody
do.
listen to Greg Lynn's interview. He unplugged for 21 days. That's a way to turn it off.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
That was a good one. But how do you turn it off, Koki?
Yeah, so I have two children, 5
Me
and
too.
3,
Yeah.
and
Yours are 5 and 2. You said
5 and 3.
5 and 3. Okay.
How old are yours?
7 and 8.
7 and 8. Okay, cool.
Babies. Okay.
Boy and a girl, or
Boy and a girl. Boy's 8, girl's 7.
Yep.
And yours are?
Boy is 5 and the girl's 3.
That's the best. I love that.
Yeah.
So just anyway, I totally sidetracked, but go ahead. Tell us about.
So this is like probably 3 years ago, and my son is we're in the living room, whatever. My son is like trying to get my attention, and I'm on the phone. I'm like I don't know, I was emailing or texting or whatever I was doing, and I have like no idea that he's like trying to get my attention. And so after like I don't know if it was 20, 30 seconds, my wife just walks over and she's like, "Hey, like Akil's trying to talk to you." And I look over and I'm like, "Oh, hey," and like the look in his eyes of like me just not paying attention to him. I was like, "Holy crap! Like I can't do that,"
Yeah.
And so when I'm with my kids, I really try and like not be on my phone, and like
which is what that administrative assistant's for.
Yeah, exactly, and like just like focusing on them, whether we're playing or doing a puzzle together. Like yesterday, I was home with my son for a couple hours before his football game, and we're just sitting there like doing a puzzle together, and it's like the best time, like one-on-one with your child, spending time together, and because the moments go by so fast. They're already 5 and 3. It feels like yesterday, they were
babies,
newborns, right?
Mm-hmm.
So really like cherishing those moments. And even if you don't have kids, you have pets, or if you don't have pets, like you need time to just unwind and like be with yourself. And you should have hobbies like reading, or join a poker club or whatever.
Yoga's my thing, right? So how do you? Really, I think it would be when you turn it off, you have an assistant that could take it on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
I mean that's.
Or you're hiring a new one right now, but. Right.
One is having support, but two is also managing your clients' expectations. That like, yes, you want to do like everything possible to provide the best service, to your clients,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, like you are human, and it's okay to like, have time to be at dinner with your family, or you don't want to work at 9, 10 o'clock at night, So, I think in those first conversations with clients,
Mm-hmm.
kind of setting up those boundaries, I think is also very important.
And how do you do that?
Just in the conversation, like you should always have a series of questions that you're asking like a new buyer or a new seller, like when you're trying to learn about them and see what's important to them. And a simple question is, what are your normal hours of availability, right? So that, okay, well, we're available in the evenings or weekends, whatever. Awesome, I'm available at these times. All right. So based on what you've now both shared,
unless the deal's falling down, then you're available. That's all right.
Unless issue,
you're not doing 120 transactions a year not being available. But,
yeah.
Right. But right, but there's certain things that after a certain hour you are and aren't available for, is what
Right.
I'm, not to put words in your mouth, but I want to give everybody a good picture. Because I have found some people, their agents, they're like, I'm just not available after 6 o'clock. And usually those agents aren't selling more than $5 million a year. Because you
Right.
can't sell more than $5 million a year if you're not going to be available after 6 o'clock, because stuff's going to go down. And you gotta be relentless. You gotta be
Right.
there. I'm sending you Relentless. Have you read Relentless? We were talking about that earlier.
I haven't. No, but I
Great
need
book. You would, just as an athlete, you will love, and basketball player, and it was written by Tim Grover, who was the coach. Isaac, we got to make sure that happens. Okay, so anyway, what is the one thing that you would hope that we all get out of this on team management and stress management, which are the reason why we're doing both in one is because Koki's good at these and they do crossover. What's the one thing?
So before I give you the one thing,
Yes, please.
I have a question for you.
Oh, no.
Okay.
All right, let's do it. So
before I get to the question, the one thing that I would say in team building and also in the mindfulness meditation, you should always know.
Seriously, did the sound just go off?
Yeah, on him.
Seriously, the sound just went off.
Oh.
I mean, it was like the one thing. I'm like, and we didn't hear a word of it. So let's do it again.
All right. Does it sound
It's
on
not
now?
usually this shaky, Koki. This is like you're just a special guest.
Is it sound on?
Yeah, it's good now.
Okay. All right. So, to me, the one important thing within the mindfulness meditation and also in team building is that you should always know what your end goal is, right? Because anything that you do, there's a reason, a purpose why you're doing it, or in my opinion, there should be. So, just take the time to sit down and kind of write through some thoughts on, why it is that you're in the business, why are you doing what it is that you're doing, why do you want to have success, why do you want to sell $5 million a year, why do you want to sell $50 million a year, and so knowing that goal will then help drive all of your decisions.
Well, and because it's very easy in being service oriented to get kind of driven by other people's agenda, which is not bad, but in the end, you've got to keep your focus. That's what I hear when you say that. All right.
Now, are you ready, Jere?
I don't know. Isaac, are you ready to edit this out? I'm kidding, everybody.
So, this is episode 79 of your podcast.
Well, is this? No.
I think it's going to be 81.
I think it's 81.
81. Okay.
Okay.
Those are 81 amazing conversations that you've had, and you've now shared all this great information with whoever's listening across the world. And so, thank you for having me on here twice.
Thank you for being on.
The question is, out of all these conversations that you've had, what's the one common thread that you found throughout all these conversations?
Well, common thread of success.
Of anything. I mean, it's, most folks you have on here are highly successful people, right?
Yeah.
And so what one common thing have you found through your conversations with all these people?
Okay, so I might have to make it 3. I didn't know this question was coming. And then maybe I'll go 1. I process out loud. I would say the one common thing is passion. Every single interviewee on this show has passion.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that in interviewing people on this is great. In interviewing people on this show, everybody on the show is comfortable on their own skin. They know who they are, and they know what true success is. And if you read the book Relentless, and you have to read Never Split the Difference too, you will see what I'm talking about. Relentless is all about people. It talks about closers, and thank you, Mark Noah, for sending me that book in LA. But it's all about, you've got people who just kind of like live life. And if you're a spiritual person, meditator, Code of Extraordinary Mind, that's a great book by Vishen Lakhiani. He also talks about this, but on a much more, yoga, or not yoga is not the right word, but a much more peaceful, Relentless is the fighter, but either way, it's all the same. But you get people who just kind of like accommodate to the world. And then you get people who get the world to accommodate to them. And then you get to the people who are playing a whole another level. And I mean, it's like, it's not about what people think. It's not about, it's like they've got an agenda, and not in a negative way, to the betterment of people. But it's those people who they just are who they are, and they know their talents and they utilize them in a way that helps other people and grows them and grows other people, which grows themselves. And those are the people, and it's that passion behind it that is the common denominator of the guests on this show.
Yep. Okay. Awesome. Passion.